longer here. Okay, so now we need to use Pandas. So how can we use it? First of all, we need to import it. And the very popular short our alias is PD. Okay, now we have a list. So let's say list of scores. Or maybe I'll just scores series. So I need to refer to the series, which is part of Pandas, so pd.series. And here I can define the list in a variable and then send the variable, or send the list directly here. So I can do this, for example. Okay. So now if I print it, there you go. So you see, the indices are, the numeric based indices is the default. I can use it to access a particular element, as long as if I didn't provide a replacement label, then it shouldn't be a problem. So let's say I want to access this number. So that would be 0, 1, 2. Okay. Now, if I decided to add a meaningful label, then so I'm just gonna use the index parameter and then send the list of labels. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have, these are scores of players, so I can put the names of the players here. Now you see, usually when you want to put something meaningful, especially if you want to put it on a graph, you don't start with 0, right? 0 is something we are familiar with us as programmers because that's how the programming is, right? But when you want to create a graph or present something that would be meaningful to someone who's not going to look into the code, you don't start at 0. And that's usually where the confusion starts. Okay, so if this is going to appear on a graph, we don't want to say player 0. Okay, so now we need to know the difference between what appears to the end user and how it is represented. Now that I replaced now see what happened? Now that I replaced the index with labels, now it gives me that warning that in the future, this is going to be deprecated. And now it still works. I still get the number, but like you don't want to keep it in your code if you want to code it on for a long term. Okay. Otherwise, it's still accessible through the function called iLocation. Okay. But if you want to use the indexer, the square brackets directly with the name of the object, then you should use the label that you choose to replace. And since our labels start at 1, not at 0, I have to be careful with that distinction. So player 3 is the one that is at index 2. Okay. Now, the other way that we can create a series is by providing a dictionary. So I can use scores with dictionary. Okay, so also it's pd.series. There are so many other ways, these are not the only ones, but let's say we have a dictionary here. Now I can say So I can send the labels with the values. Might be even better for readability. So I'm just gonna put any values here, but they need to be the same. All right. Now it's pretty much the same way we did here. Like the series after the creation, it doesn't matter how you created it. It's exactly the same as like whether you created with a list or with a dictionary or with any other way, it is exactly the same. Okay, so the series is just pretty much one-dimensional array, but with extra features, including the labels. Okay. Now, what if we have an additional dimension of information? Now, also, if you're curious about what else you can do with a series, you can look at the documentation here. So it gives you all the functions and all the properties available. And also, if you're curious, you can look at the source code here as well in their GitHub. Okay, well, sometimes the documentation is not up to date. Okay, sometimes the code would be updated, but the documentation wouldn't, it would be trailing. So it's very helpful that you look at the code directly and see what's happening to understand it. Right. Now, what if we have an extra dimension? So we have 2 dimensions or 2 factors. So in addition to the dimension of the players, we have the dimension of the game. Okay, so we need a 2-dimensional data structure. And in Pandas, the data frame is a very popular 2-dimensional data structure. Now, you can create it using a dictionary. So when you provide this, the labels, I mean, the keys in the dictionary, when you send it to the data frame, would be the labels of the columns. Okay? So these are the labels of a column. This is the first column. It looks like a row when you write it in the dictionary, but it would be actually go as a column in the data frame, or pretty much it would be a series. So every column in the data frame is a series. And because we didn't specify indices or labels for the rows, so the location base or the numeric base location were used as labels. Okay. Now, if we want to access one row like this, we can use the label of the row to access it. And this will give us a series, so we can work with it, so we can receive it in another variable and work with it as an independent series. If we haven't replaced the numeric base locations, we can still use them. If we have, then we should use that labels. So when we send a list of labels for the index parameter, it will be the labels for the series, which pretty much are labels for the rows. Okay? So it might be a little bit confusing. So player 1 is a label for row 1. Okay? Now it looks like player 1 is associated with a collection of numbers, right? But in reality, every column here is an independent object. Not completely independent, but it is an object on itself, which is a series object. And every one of them has player 1 as the first label, second label player 2, and so on. Okay? Now, so now when you try to print just the first column, it looks pretty much the same as it looked when we printed the series, except that now it has a name. Now, if you create a series object by itself, you can put a name on the collection. You have to put a name on every data value. Okay, so let's have a look at that.